Welcome to Iron and Ceremony, Librarius Omnis, where we explore the depths of the Black Library.
Hello and welcome to Iron and Ceramite at Librarius Omnis, where we're going through the vast back catalogue of the Black Library, starting with the Horus Heresy. And we are continuing our, I suppose it's now a mini-series within the series itself of the 7 short stories found in the Tales of Heresy, which is the one we're going through right now. So we've already done the first 2 stories that feature in that. Which were A Wolf at the Door and what was the first one?
Blood Games.
And Blood Games, that's it. Blood Games and A Wolf at the Door. And now we're on to the third one, which is Scions of the Storm. This one is shorter than the first 2. So it is a quick read or listen, depending on how you take in these stories. And it's set around the Word Bearers Legion, which is, the first time we really get any story that's focused on them directly in the series. We obviously hear about various characters from the Legion, but this is the first one that the first appearance we get of them that's directly focused on this Legion. So it's nice to get a little bit of color, nice to kind of understand maybe a bit more about who they are and how they operate. And the place they play within the wider scheme of the Horus Heresy, but this is all new to us right now as we come into it. So it's as I said, it's a nice short story. Gives us a bit of flavour and keeps us barreling through the book as well. But what quick overview from you, John? What did you think?
I really enjoyed it. I like more than I thought I would, because maybe not knowing too much, I was just thinking, Word Bearers, they don't sound too exciting, but obviously we saw them in Battle for the Abyss because they were the 80s villains, and I think they came off quite cartoony in that. And I think this did a good job at reversing that and making them, when we first joined them, and the main character we'll get into, I thought he was cool. I thought what they were doing was pretty cool, and the way they operate is good. It seemed serious, and the overarching sort of basically, I just really liked it, and it's made me really want to crack on and get to more, because obviously I know the Word Bearers and Erebus are going to be just a massive part of what we're getting into. And it sort of lit that fire underneath me to get to more of it.
All of the memes would tell you that you already hate Word Bearers, right? So you've almost got to get over that, because what I quite liked about the story, and we'll discuss it as we go, was that for the largest part of it, they're painted like any other legion. Now, what I was going to say here is a normal legion. That's, all of them are normal legions, but we're conditioned through the various memes and stuff like that in 40k that the Word Bearers are the 80s baddies from that as per the Abyss, whereas this shows them, actually the vast majority of them, and the character you talk about as a good example of that, are just kick-ass Marines. They're good at what they do. They're still Astartes. Obviously, we'll get into this as well, but towards the end you get that villainous return, but that's from what we expect from the key players in the Word Bearers Legion. But you can sort of understand how it's all happening, and how maybe that legion is torn asunder by what's happened outside of a lot of the Marines' knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I think this, if people read like Battle for the Abyss, because I know that we liked it, but it was the first one I think we come across that had a really split, don't like this book, it's pointless, but it fixes some of the issues with the Word Bearers. And it's a good story. Obviously we get a bit of we get to see a bit of Lorgar in it as well, and we haven't come across him at all, I don't think.
No, and
didn't pass him.
his funky name that I can never remember. It's not the Eurasian, but it's the Europe something.
Anyway. Eurasian, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Eurasian. Yeah,
which is a strange one. I did look it up and knew what it was until about 10 minutes ago, and then I forgot it. But I think it's like the learned or
yeah, it's like a scholarly word.
Yeah. But shall we get into this one then?
Let us dive in. Yep.
Oh, the only other note is this one's obviously written by Anthony Reynolds, who we haven't come across yet, but we will see him with The Purge, Dark Heart, and then there's another one in the Heresy. So
they sound like a lot further on.
Yeah, they're not, when I open the book, they're not even on the first 20.
Yeah, okay. So
the opening page. So yeah, they're a long way away. So
yeah, stay tuned for 2028 when we get to that.
yeah. But based on this book alone, I'm looking forward to those books now because I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's fair. So,
this story begins, as many do, in the Heresy, taking place during the Great Crusade on a planet marked for imperial compliance. The inhabitants of planet designated 4716 had been isolated for millennia, and they had rejoiced when the Astartes of the Imperium arrived. Yes, as many do.
The good guys are here.
Yay! For 4,000 years, they'd been alone in terror was a little more than a myth to them, but they welcomed the grey armoured word bearers. Returning to his ship, Corferon dismissed them as corrupt worshippers of a heathen god. And we've met Corferon already, and the fact that he doesn't like this planet is already not a good sign for the inhabitants of 4716.
Yep, like he is the trusted lieutenant of
is he the first captain
of Lorgar? Yeah, he is indeed the first captain. But he's a bit like Luther from the Dark Angels chapter in that he's not full Astartes.
Yeah.
So he was too old when the Emperor found Lorgar. So he's augmented, and he lives for ages, but and is definitely proto-human, as it were. Right. But he is not Astartes.
There's a lot of that. There's more of that going on than I realised.
It tends to be with a lot of their first. Oh, I've got my camera. It tends to be with a lot of their first captains. So when they're discovered, they're like they're their favourite people or whatever. That's who they want to bring with them. And the Emperor's like, well, we can give them power armor. We can roid them up for you, but effectively they're never going to be full of Astartes. Now, what's interesting is subtangent. When this happened with the Space Wolves, rather than them say, we'll just we'll take the proto-human surgery, they said no, we'll go through the Astartes ritual, and if we die, we die.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the others, like as I said, like Luther, like Corferon, were just augmented.
Right, straight off the bat.
Yeah.
Primarch said, I'll come, but I'm not going without my friends.
Basically, yeah.
Bring him somehow, yeah. Get him a meal ticket.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. So now we meet the main character, captain of the 34th Company, Saur Talgron. And Saur Talgron reminds Corferon that it's their duty to embrace even the most wayward strands of humanity, and asks him, wouldn't the God Emperor want his most devout sons to lead these people to enlightenment? Officially, the Great Crusade was there to expand the Imperium of Man, spreading the truth of science and reason, and dispelling the falsehood of religion and spirituality. However, the 17th Legion know the truth, although for them it's a heavy burden to bear. Saur Talgron knew that the time for everyone to embrace the God Emperor's divinity was closing in. Faith would soon become humanity's greatest strength, and faith would become the mortar to hold the Imperium of Man together. For those legions that denied Lorgar's holy scripture would eventually understand and be forced to beg his forgiveness. And the fact that the Emperor himself denied his own divinity didn't faze the 17th Legion. Only the truest deny their divinity, words written by Lorgar himself. Basically, all the captains are gathered holding a war council on Lorgar's flagship, and the captains of the other companies are watching, waiting the confrontation between these two to develop, until Erebus, the first chaplain of the Legion, steps between them and breaks the tension.
Good old Erebus. Piece of yeah. He's fine.
He's all right. He's all right. He's just doing his job. Softly spoken, he announced that he and the first captain would go and consult with the Urizen, and Lorgar's wisdom would guide them. Sor Talgrim bowed to Erebus, turned and left the chamber, intending to board a Stormbird back to his own ship. Sor Talgrim hadn't seen the Urizen in over a month, and his absence from the meeting had been felt. Tensions rose and tempers flared throughout the Legion. In truth, the Legion needed their Primarch to exist and exit his self-induced exile, where he had been following ever since his meeting with the Emperor himself. Only the closest advisors, Corfair and Erebus, had been permitted to see him, and the 47th Expedition Fleet had been dormant for far too long. Oh, fuck.
And just like that, the word bearers reach out and
I was just moving the light out my eye so I can actually read. I've just smashed the camera. There we go. Yes. So, 47th Legion had been dormant for too long. Sor Talgrim had caught a glimpse of the Primarch on his return to the fleet and had been shocked to the core for a split second as he locked eyes with Lorgar and had seen nothing but despair. Lorgar always radiated an aura of passion and belief, which gave his followers the strength of faith that something had happened to steal this from their leader. Although Erebus had tried to hide this and rush Lorgar to his chamber, what Sor Talgrim had seen had brought him to his knees. They are a dramatic lot, aren't they?
they really are. Like it's just like they, come on. Like they're obviously a zealot chapter, right?
Yeah.
But they're almost like they almost seem programmed to have this idol worship.
Yeah.
And like you've got the Emperor who's the top of the tree, and then to everyone else then there's Lorgar, who is like the son of the Emperor. So it's like this real living god idol worship that they seem to go through, and that makes them a little bit dramatic.
Yeah. But they're all like it. Remember in Wolf at the Door, where that guy in charge of their prime minister basically slags off the Emperor, and Bulvine nearly falls off the stairs.
Yeah, blown back by the power.
It's like, whoa,
yeah,
whoa.
I suppose there is I think it is that level of ridiculousness that maybe I think they're rightly trying to put forward in our heads. But this is crazy, right?
Yeah. Or maybe the Emperor really liked pantomimes. Is something he tried to keep and just put a bit of overacting into everybody.
Yeah, could well have been. Could well have been. Like really, really turned up the juice on the acting chromosomes.
Yeah. Anyway, Sor Talgrim shook the painful memory, and as he was about to enter his hangar, he was summoned back to the war chamber. The Urizen had made a decision. He hoped that Lorgar would be present to share the news with his sons, but he was disappointed, as this would not be the case. Erebus addressed the word bearers. In his great mercy, Lorgar wishes this planet of lost sons of terror to rejoin the Imperium. There were murmurs and nods of approval rippling throughout the crowd, including Sor Talgrim. This was the way of the word bearers, although their progress was not as swift as the others. All the worlds that they brought to the Imperial truth were the most devout by the time the 17th were done with them. Obviously, those who refused were crushed beneath the zealous boots of Lorgar, but those who would accept would be blessed and embraced. Sor Talgrim sent a triumphant glance towards Corfair, who had been braying for war, but noticed that he didn't see the look of disappointment that he had expected. Erebus continues, however, it is with great sadness and regret that Urizen has come to this decision. The Emperor is displeased with our Legion, brothers. Sor Talgrim's blood turned cold as all eyes fixed on the chaplain. The Emperor is not satisfied with our progress and the rate which we bring worlds to compliance. In his wisdom, the Emperor has rebuked our beloved Primarch and ordered us to swiffen our pace. The words of Erebus hinted bitterness. The Urizen believes that in time the planet below us could be brought into the fold and shown the errors of their ways and accept the imperial truth. But Lorgar is a loyal son, and no matter how painful, he cannot refuse an order. And what are those orders? Asked Argyle Tau, captain of the 7th Company. Reluctant to go on, Erebus told them they do not have the time necessary to dedicate the conversion of this planet. Their beliefs make them incompatible with the Imperium, and as a result, they must burn. Saw Talron reeled at this order. How could they put an entire planet to death, especially one that had potential to become one of the most faithful? All because of the Emperor's impatience. He immediately felt shame for this blasphemous fault. He promised that once this war was done, he would atone with hours of penance and self-flagellation. But he was a warrior of Lorgar and a soldier who didn't question his betters. He and every other member of the Legion threw themselves into preparation for war. And in 24 hours, 120 million people were dead. That's 98% of the population.
Yeah, they didn't fuck about. What I thought was interesting about that piece there is that it's you don't know it at this point in terms of the timeline, but this takes place after the Lorgar and the Emperor catch up in Monarchia, which is like one of Lorgar's home cities or whatever it is, and they. So I think this is So what happens in Monarchia is that's where the Emperor sends the Ultramarines to burn the city. So they give warning. This is a spoiler alert, by the way. It comes up in the first Heretic. But basically, they give loads of warning. They tell everyone to get out. The Emperor's decreed that this perfect city, this shrine to him, is going to be destroyed. Right. As a way of rebuking. That's the rebuke of Lorgar. So that's where he says to him, you come on, this is the imperial truth. You can't treat me as a god. So I've got to teach you a lesson, and that lesson is to smash your favorite city.
Seems reasonable.
And he psychically forces him to kneel before him. Whatever. So anyway, that's what happens there. That's what pisses Lorgar off. That's what makes, the entire thing. And obviously Erebus and Corphaeron use that as their mechanism to start getting into the into worming their little magics, as it were. Now the other person that we hear of here is what's his name? Argyle
Tau. Hang on. Let me scroll. Yeah, Argyle Tau, captain of the 7th.
Yeah, who becomes besties with Khan, the betrayer.
Okay.
So he's actually a really cool character. Again, more will come from him as the heresy develops, but very important character in the arc of some of the key characters that come forth throughout the rest of the heresy. But I just wanted to drop that in there as it's a nice little nugget. But yeah, otherwise, then they go about doing what Marines do, and that's making the world compliant. Which
no wonder people turned on him.
Well, I think at this point that we don't know it yet, but it's all in play, right? But effectively they're saying, this world, they're worshipping, the wrong gods, wrong god. So we're going to go down there. We don't have time to muck about. Let's just make them compliant. And that's what they do, because that's what their Primarchs told them to do.
Cool. While we're talking about other characters and stuff, because I was going to look it up, but because I've packed half my stuff away. When we was doing Mechanicum, and we had Rogel Dawn and Malcador talking, who was the word bearer that's in orbit near enough Terra that they were talking about sending with Sigismund, but then they said no, they're going to do it themselves. Can you remember? Was that someone who's been mentioned?
Was it a word bearer?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
It wasn't. It was a word. It was definitely. It wasn't a world eater. It was a word bearer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But that's what I was going to look it up, but I can't. So I was just wondering if you could remember.
No, off the top of my head, I can't remember. Let me see. So hang on. It was what book was that?
Mechanicum.
Let's have a look. Word bearer in.
We'll pause and then we'll jump in when we find it.
Yeah, talk amongst yourselves here.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Let's see.
Because I think it was either Saw Talgon or Argo Tal. I'm sure it's one of their names, but
yeah, it wasn't. So I've just tried searching word bearer and Mechanicum. It's not coming up with.
Yeah, I tried there.
So I don't think it's either of these two. It definitely won't be Argle, because he's with the Urizen. So that that they're where they are. I don't think he would be able to get from Terra and back again. Because I was going to say during Mechanicum, the treachery's revealed. Where we are now, it's kind of post Monarchia, but not full heresy at this point.
Yeah.
This story anyway. And Soul Tarragon's a herb. What's his chops? The guy in this one.
Saw Talgron.
Saw Talgron. Yeah, he sounds like, as I said, because his name could almost be part of an anagram for things like, Soul Tarvitz and Garrow and stuff like that. It sounds like a very familiar name, even though I don't think we hear from him again.
Yeah.
But having said that, I don't know for sure.
Cool. Well,
anyway.
We'll jump back into it then. So we couldn't figure it out. So we'll have to go back and watch our own episode or read the book again and pick it up. So, as we said, within 24 hours, 120 million people were dead. For 12 hours, the fleet had bombarded the surface, and only one city had survived Armageddon. And that was the seat of the planet's council. Protected by a bubble of energy at the heart of the city, it was a structure as tall as the city was wide. And it was the 17th were unwilling to allow any heathens to survive. So 5 full companies were sent to the surface to eradicate any who remained. Saw Talgon led his 34th company to the surface in a fleet of Stormbirds. Despite the planet being a ruin, the final city still presented a formidable defense, firing waves of energy upwards, taking out at least 100 Astartes just as they entered the atmosphere. Saw Talgon sent out a warning to the captains of the other 4 companies, but as he did, his Stormbird took a hit and began spiraling downwards. The blast doors were jettisoned, and Saw Talgon led the surviving Marines out at 19,000 feet and ignited their jump packs. They could see the curvature of the planet briefly before descending through the clouds, and lightning struck around the ruined city. The city was easily 20 kilometers around, with a dome stood right at the center, protected by the energy bubble. Saw Talgon picked his landing spot 5 kilometers away from the center and ordered his men to follow. The city itself was made from a resilient glassy material, and although it had been bombed to hell, much more remained than expected. The city was one giant structure, hundreds of levels high, and connected by numerous bridges and walkways. The city must have been beautiful before the word bearers unleashed themselves upon it, and Saw Talgon thought that beauty was to be mistrusted. Although the city still stood, the civilians did not. Fire had reigned through the city, and anyone who had been outside had been reduced to a charred patch on the ground. For those who were packed inside looking for safety, the flames had reacted with the structure, melting and fusing the poor souls together, and nothing seemingly human remained. As Saw Talgon took in the sights, battle barges released shower drop pods into the city. Many were wiped out before they hit the ground. They had assumed that there would be little ground resistance, but then giant 3-legged robots began to walk out from behind the dome, and the battle began. So amazing that they've killed 98% of the population, but yet they're getting wiped out pretty quickly coming into landing.
That's it. They've gone, everything's been, pulled back into the energy bubbles or whatever, and it's like the last the last roll of the dice. Although, well, I'm not going to go because we find out what these things are. So
yeah. So saw Talgron's primary heart pump wildly as he slammed himself against a glass spire to cover from the energy beams being fired at his men. One of them was caught square in the chest and flung painfully into a wall and collapsed in a twitching mess. His armor charred black and bubbling. His insides were cooked. Too many of his men had been killed already, and he prayed that Sergeant Cole Badar's plan would work, taking one of the spires down should break the dome shield and make a final advance possible. His apothecary brother Cadmon ran from cover, exposing himself to drag the dead Astartes into cover. His drill going to work as blood splattered his armor. Quickly, he recovered the dead soldier's precious gene seed. That's something that we haven't come across too much. I think maybe when we were in with Garrow and the Death God sieging wherever city it was with the war birds or whatever they were called, and you saw Fabius Bile collecting gene seed.
Yeah.
That's the only time we've come across it.
It's it is interesting that I mean, it's good that they mention it. I think it's more for characterization in this point. I don't think there's anything on to what they're doing. What I quite like is this is another big tangent that for anyone that's watching and is interested in it. Midwinter Minis, which is a very good YouTube channel. They did or the guy that runs it, who's a guy called Guy. So Guy from Winter Minis, he did a thing where he did an artist impression of what a Space Marine would actually look like based on the grim dark descriptions from 40k when it first started. And like you see the glands that they all take out of their necks, it would look like a tumor on the side of your neck, whereas obviously we get visions of Space Marines, tall, heroic, master race type people, whereas like his is like this really like thick-headed, massive nosed tumor on his neck. Abomination. Yeah, so it's worth a look because it's quite interesting how they put it together. But yeah, there is actually a model out there, and it's definitely a chaos one. It might be Fabius Bile, but it's one of his it might be Fabius Bile, but it's one of his servitors removing gene seed, and that's what they used as the reference on this model because it's this massive tennis ball size thing that they're pulling out from under this guy's neck. So they may try and make it sound quite noble and heroic in the text, but the actual reality of it is quite grim dark.
Just ripping a chunk out.
Pretty much, yeah.
And off we go. So the energy beams continued as they held position. It was only a matter of time before these formidable automatons managed to outflank them. These were no mindless robots. They had artificial intelligence. An abomination!
Indeed. Abominable intelligence.
Yes, it is. Forbidden by the Emperor himself, to disobey was heresy of the highest order. The fact that the inhabitants of this planet were unaware was no excuse. I love that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, ignorance is not an excuse.
No. Saw Talgon's unit still high up, going from building to building, crossing open bridges, rushing from cover to cover. Down below on the surface, he saw thousands of grey-clad Astartes advancing slowly towards a number of the alien engines. Astartes marched from every angle, supported by land raiders and rhino tanks. The bolt of fire looked like candles flickering in the wind. However, the insect-like robots soaked up the bolt of fire with unseen force field and returned fire, dishing out horrific losses to the word bearers. The amount of concentrated fire needed to finally just take out one of these robots was hard to comprehend and left those attacking vulnerable to counterattack. As he watched from above, he felt some guilt at the mindless destruction they had unleashed on the population that would have willingly joined the Imperium. But he felt a sudden stab of resentment and asked him why the Emperor hadn't even let them attempt this compliance. He hadn't seen a living human from this planet, only the gory remains that his legion had left behind. As he was gathering his forces back up, arrived to get them out of their pinned position. Squad Tertius riding on new machines from the forges of Mars. 3 grey land speeders rushed from under the bridge and banked sharply towards the enemy, spewing heavy bolt rounds and high-velocity multi-melters at the target. The overwhelming force turned the war machines to molten metal. With the target neutralized, he stepped out into the open and scanned for his next jump coordinates. He saw his destination at 274 meters and sent the coordinates to his men. And with that, he stepped onto the ledge and jumped. As gravity began to take hold, his jump pack roared into life, and he and his men shot across the void, spewing black smoke behind them. A target alert went off in his helmet, and he saw another set of enemy machines emerge from behind a building 100 meters to his right. He sent out a warning as he saw the power sparking up from the contacts of his veteran squad become targets in the open. He sent himself into a barrel roll, and moments later, a laser beam of energy hit where he had been a split second before. Unfortunately, 2 of his men were hit directly, and beams of electricity shot from their bodies, hitting those unlucky enough to be too close, shorting out life support systems, wrecking targeting systems, and taking out their jump packs. So that's a pretty bad day.
Yep.
Not even hit by the bloody thing, and you still get taken out.
Tesla technology.
That's it. Getting absolutely wrecked. So Saw Talron turned in the air and faced the enemy. Take them, he ordered his men, and dived down towards these 3 enemy machines, firing heavy bolt rounds as they went, seeing the force field absorb his rounds. They were eager to exact vengeance, so he landed hard but kept his feet as he turned his jump pack off and gripped his power mace. Although the machines could absorb vast amounts of bullet fire, they couldn't take a direct hit in hand-to-hand combat. The machines were alien-looking constructs. They're about the same size as a dreadnought, but not as bulky. The top half almost humanoid, with a featureless head and silver veins running through its body. It had 2 arms, but instead of hands, they armed in glassy-like spikes, which produced the electricity when the arms were brought together. The machines walked on a trio of slender legs, spider-like, and moved around in darting movements like a large bird. Saw Talron led, followed first by Sergeant Ashak and the rest of his company. Saw Talron smashed his mace into the front leg of the closest machine. It recoiled in pain and crumbled as it put its weight onto its broken leg. He leapt up onto its chest and caved its head in with a crushing blow. An explosion went off behind him as the second machine was brought down by melter grenades. Saw Talron fired at the third machine. Its shield deflecting the rounds, and it sent out a beam of energy, killing another veteran. Sergeant Ashak charged from the side, punching through and disabled the shield with his power fist. Saw Talron and his men advanced, firing pistol rounds into it, and Ashak fired an explosive round into its head, sending glass spraying everywhere. But even in death, the machines were deadly. As this machine fell, its arms came together and sent out another beam of energy directly at Saw Talron. He saw it coming and twisted his body, avoiding a direct hit, was carried into the air by the force of the beam. His vision went black and his circuitry burned out, and you could smell it in his helmet melting flesh, and that it was his. He then tumbled over the ledge and fell 30 meters, landing painfully. A lesser man would have died, but he got to his feet, his body protesting. Ripping off a useless helmet, he looked up at the lightning tearing the sky apart. He's described as being a tough bastard. While most of the starters of the 17th Legion bore a resemblance to the noble Primarch, Saw Talron had the face of a man born to fight. His nose had been broken so many times it was just a fleshy lump smeared across his face.
I love that description. It's like just real, real glamorous.
I know. So like, they really didn't like him, did they? It's like, we just make him a really ugly git.
Like fleshy lump smashed across his face. Oh dear. Like, yeah, you can just imagine it.
He must keep his helmet on most of the time.
Yeah, I mean,
not at war.
I don't know. Like, he'd probably lop it off by the sounds of it because it doesn't do anything.
No. And the other thing is now, like, not only has he got a lumpy nose, he's now got a melted face.
Yeah. He's not in. Yeah, but he doesn't care.
No, he don't care. Remember, beauty is not to be trusted. So
clearly, the other thing is the Astartes' ability to heal doesn't go as far as reshaping a nose.
They haven't got automatic plastic surgery.
No, like, if your nose gets busted, it's bust.
Yeah, deal with it. After a moment, Arshak and other veterans came screeching to a halt next to the captain. He confirmed the 3 machines were destroyed and the path to the shield dome was now clear. He took Ashak's arm in thanks, and the last sparks of electricity flowed along his hand and up the sergeant's arm. They're only 500 meters away from the dome now. From below, the dome was taking an incredible amount of punishment from an uncountable number of tanks with firepower that would have leveled any number of cities by now. A Demi legion of Titans were unleashing everything they had and not even making a dent. More of the enemy machines marched out of the dome and advanced on the word bearers below. But for now, Saw Talgron and his men had to wait, hoping that Kor Baldar's plan would pay off. They looked on at the tall spires that protruded from the dome. Several times a minute, bolts of lightning would strike from the sky and hit the towers, and they would harness the energy, which would shoot out at the ground, killing dozens of Astartes every time. An almost deafening explosion ran out as a warlord Titan was hit in the chest by lightning, its shields blown out instantly. The Titan began to move back out of danger. When it was struck in the head by another bolt, it fell dead, instantly crushing 2 land raider tanks beneath it like paper. Ouch.
Yep.
Also, on top of the dome were 3 smaller spikes dispersed between the larger ones. They also absorbed the lightning, but instead of zapping the Astartes, it discharged onto the dome itself, and Kor Balder had suggested that these were the source of the dome's protection. His men got in place and set melter charges at the bottom of each tower as Kor Balder voxed in, telling him that his spire was secure and his charges were in place. Balder was one of his most trusted sergeants, battle-hardened and intelligent, so Saw Talgron had faith in his plan and knew Balder would go far in his future. He voxed the other sergeant, Sergeant Pablum, for an update. A roar of a chainsword rang out as the sergeant reported he was engaged with the enemy. Static ran out, and after a few moments of silence, a new voice responded. This is Brother Acton. Sergeant is down. I'm taking temporary command of his squad. Saw Talgron knew Acton was more than capable and accepted this statement. All squads were in position, so he gave the order, and each cluster of melter charges ignited. The 3 spires groaned and collapsed downwards into the dome. As they fell, a gap was formed, and Saw Talgron thought it would be only a temporary gap and gave his men the order to move. His squad ignited their jump packs and dived up and into the rent that was caused by the explosion. The impact of the spires on the dome sent out an electronic buzz that made his skin tingle. As he led through the shrinking gap, his body jolted as if struck by lightning. His pack cut out and he fell like a rock. His skin was now charred and smoking as he plummeted and landed hard on a balcony within the dome. His body twitched involuntarily as he stood up. His burnt face smelt unpleasant, and he unclipped the now useless jump pack, tossing it to the floor. That was unpleasant, moaned Arshak as he got to his feet. His cream tabard still on fire as he ripped it off. Apparently, only Saw Talgron's squad had made it inside, and he cursed loudly. It had taken all their melter bombs to get this far, and they wouldn't be able to do it again. And now he couldn't communicate with those outside to give them fresh orders. The city inside was awe-inspiring and untouched by the war, its glassy structures and walkways weaved like crystal spider webs. Saw Talgron's face stung, but he paid none of this any attention. His eyes were fixed on the giant statue at the center of the dome. A robed man with his arms outstretched, made of the same glass material. Lightning struck at his hands and made the statue glow. So it's true, Lynn. They really are heathen idolaters, spat Arshak. Lorgar, give me strength, sighed Saw Talgron. Just then, Arshak's scanner detected multiple contacts moving. Saw Talgron pointed towards the statue. We'll go there and kill everyone we find. They had not encountered a single living being during this war, and that didn't seem to be changing. They moved at a constant stealthy pace, always on alert. They crossed miles towards the great statue and occasionally saw one of the enemy constructs far below on the lower level making way to the edge to join the battle. Either the constructs were ignoring them or just unaware. Saw Talgron almost hoped for something to attack just to ease the tension. And finally, they reached the base of the statue, and Arshak's scanner detected life signs ahead. At the base of the statue, there are a number of triangular portals filled with white blinding light. Saw Talgron shielded his eyes and ordered his men through. Because that is what you do. You just walk blindly through a void of white light.
Yeah, that's it. It's, first mission, we're going to kill everyone we find. It's shoot first, ask questions later. And then it's, hey, I mean, we already know he's got his nose smushed all over his face. Now he probably looks a bit like Two-Face from Batman.
Yeah.
Like he's going to look that grim and smell that fresh right now. So, it's unsurprising.
Yeah. You'd be pissed off too if you had your face. You just kill, and clearly his Astartes was in the suit that eases their pains working though, because anyone else would be screaming.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's fully the old combat stims are doing their job.
Oh yeah. So they stepped through, and the change in the atmosphere was instant. Where before the air had contained a charged static energy, the air here felt clear. They found themselves on a platform and saw a smaller version of the idol stood before them. This one was still 50 meters tall as it reached up into the sky. Looking down, there were level after level of civilians bowed in prayer to the false god. On the lowest level stood an elderly man, the religious leader of the planet, who Corferon had met with days before. In all that he was taken in, he almost didn't notice the port was closed behind him. He ordered his men to follow and not engage unless he gave the order. These were the first people the world bearers had come across since arriving here, the last of the planet's population. They passed each level, seeing the people bowed in prayer, until suddenly, with some unheard command, they all stood and turned to face the word bearers. Instead of seeing faces twisted in hatred and fear as he expected, the people just looked sad and disappointed. He didn't expect any of them to pose any sort of threat, but he knew it just took one voice in a crowd to turn them into a murderous mob. The chaplains of the Astartes Legion were experts at this. Bit heavy on the nose there.
Yeah, bang. Gotcha.
No.
Get that litany of hate off.
He knew that his men would kill hundreds, if not thousands, before being brought down, but they were dozens against 40,000. Even Astartes have limits. It was more disturbing that these people watched in complete silence. At least it would make sense if they were screaming for vengeance. Arshak voxed him privately, asking what the hell they were doing. Sor Talgon responded and said, I want to see how divergent these people really are. He had known Arshak since their days on Colchis, and knew Arshak would disapprove of this action, but he would also obey his order. He also respected Arshak, respected him enough that he would not bring up this breach in protocol later. As they approached the elderly man, Sor Talgon ordered his men to form a perimeter. He approached the man who barely came up to his waist. Old and frail, the leader stood his ground. I am Sor Talgon, captain of the 34th Company of the 17th Legion, he said proudly, and his voice echoed loud. The old man said, why have you brought death to my world, warmonger? Sor Talgon ordered him to lower the defences and order a complete surrender, but the elderly leader repeated his question. He spoke in a corrupted form of Old Gothic. Sor Talgon insisted more vigorously this time, and the old man nodded his head towards an object rising from the floor. It was a dark glass cube, and Sor Talgon drew his pistol in preparation. Something was forming within the cube, so he stepped forward. It stopped at about chest height of the old man, so he was forced to bend close down to it. Images began to take shape, not too different to a 3D pic display, but usually these were of poor quality. This image was crisp and clear. It showed a book in painstaking detail, with beautiful penmanship, and the edges were gold leaf formed into swirling patterns. The word bearers spent hours a day in self-illumination, but this work was beyond any skill that he had ever witnessed. The only thing he'd ever seen comparable was the work of the Urizen himself. He had only been allowed a brief glimpse of those works. He looked closer and saw the writing was in a Gothic style that matched those that was used on his homeworld. What is this? He uttered and read a line that stood out from the page. And in faith shall the universe be united. His voice faltered. He had studied these exact words his whole life. He tried to continue. United behind the God Emperor of all mankind. He looked up in shock. We are the Scions of the storm, replied the old man. So what in Lorgar's name does that mean? The old man sighed and approached the cube, brushing his finger against it. As he did so, the pages turned rapidly until the book closed, and he and Sword Talgon stared at the image drawn on the cover. It was the Emperor, in his gold leaf armour, adjourned in the markings and symbols of the Adaptus Custodes. Thunderbolts etched into the armour and symbols that had been born even before the fall of Old Night, and Sword Talgon felt his insides turn to ice. These people had been worshipping the Emperor. Holy shit. That was a twist.
It was, wasn't it? And then you're like, oh, hang on. So what's going on? Was this a mistake? Perhaps it's just an innocent mistake. Perhaps they've accidentally wiped out 98% of this planet's population for no good reason.
Yeah, easily rectified.
You know, like, I mean, at this point, you know, you take it on its value. You're like, whoa, didn't see that coming. What's going to happen now?
Shall we find out?
Let's.
So Sword Talgon felt sick. The Scions of the Storm had been worshipping the Emperor. They worshipped him as a god, the thunder encompassing the arrival of their saviour. Now you understand, said the old man. This must be stopped, said Sword Talgon. No one else has to die. This war should not have been sanctioned. You're not heretics. No, said the old man. We had wished to join you. We thought we were alone until you arrived. I can stop this. You must lower the shield so I can contact my superiors. And the old man said, promise me no more of my people will die, and I will lower the shields. I swear it, said Sword Talgon. With that, the shields were lowered, and Sword Talgon engaged his vox and got a reply directly from Corferon. Understood. The Erizon has been informed. Hold your position. Sword Talgon and his squad stood still for several long minutes. Vox reports came through, and he knew that the fighting had stopped almost instantly. Eventually, he registered the teleportation signatures as 100 Terminators materialized all across the levels, facing the crowd. Corferon also arrived higher up. They exchanged a nod of acknowledgement, and Sword Talgon felt this a bit dramatic, but saw that Corferon was not coming down to join him. A moment later, 2 more signatures appeared in front of him, and suddenly he dropped to a knee and bowed his head in awe and disbelief. A large hand rested on his head, and a soft but authoritative heavy voice gently told him to rise. And as he did, he looked up into the eyes of a demigod. Lorgar was as magnificent as to behold as he was terrible. Every inch of exposed skin was covered in gold leaf scripture, his head completely hairless, and his eyes darkened by coal. Sword Talgon couldn't hold his gaze for even a second. Lorgar, the Urizen, the Golden One, the Anointed. He stood a head taller than Sword Talgon and wore a splendid suit of armoured granite grey, inscribed with the intricate cuneiform of Colchis, with a thick robe, the colour of congealed blood, heavy with gold stitching. So it's a big deal that Lorgar's felt the need to come out himself.
Yeah. This is a surprising visit, but one that I think a lot of the Legion's been waiting for.
Yeah, definitely. Get him out of his exile and onto the battlefield. Or
indeed,
hopefully not battlefield now.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah. Not.
Yeah, but he didn't speak. We are pleased with your progress, said a smooth voice coming from beside the Primarch. First Chaplain Erebus, the only one allowed to talk on behalf of Lorgar. Sword Talgon bowed his head and thanked the chaplain. Lorgar stared at the priest, who stared back in horror, his mouth moving but unable to speak. This is the one I believe leads the Emperor's cult on this planet, offered Sword Talgon. Erebus smiled slyly, and Sword Talgon recognized this and didn't like it. I've promised these people they will not come to harm. Do not make a liar of me. You're going soft, brother, retorted Erebus. And Sword Talgon countered, saying he believes that some trace of memory of the Emperor remained in these people. They are devout and believe, and with little effort they can be placed on the right path. And Erebus said, you have done your duty and saved a great number of our brothers, and for that you shall be commended. Erebus moved past him towards the priest and put his arm gently around the old man. There is more, offered Sword Talgon. They have, I believe, picked up our signal. I've seen a copy of His voice died as Urizen looked at him. You have seen what? They have a copy of the Lectitio Divinatus. Really? Said Lorgar, genuinely surprised. And the first word that we hear him say.
Yes.
He put his arm around Sor Talgron and asked him to walk with him, although he didn't have much of a choice. Bring him, Lorgar said to Erebus. Lorgar stopped at the bottom of the stairs and smiled. It was a lifetime ago when I wrote that book. It's the greatest literary work ever written. It is your masterpiece, replied Sor Talgron. Erebus chuckled, and Lorgar began climbing the stairs. Behind them, Erebus led the old priest up the stairs, gently but forcefully behind the Primarch. Lorgar took the stairs 4 at a time, so Sor Talgron. Hang on, that's a tongue twister. So Sor Talgron had to rush to keep up with him. Lorgar continued. Much has happened these past month. My eyes have been opened. And then, not without venom, he said, the Lectitio Divinatus is nothing. Sor Talgron struggled. Was this a test of faith? What was going on? I'm working on something new. It's nearly complete. It will be my opus, something with meaning, and you will forget all about this. They reached the top of the tower, and they were greeted by Corferon, who dropped to one knee in front of his Primarch. When he stood up, his eyes were burning, and he licked his lips in anticipation as he watched Erebus guide the elderly priest to the top step. Sor Talgron was worried now. My lord, we're going to punish these people for merely being cut off from terror. Ignorance is no excuse for blasphemy, spat Corferon, who quickly backed away under the glare of Lorgar. Now, I know that I said that this book does well in taking away the cartoonish vibe for everyone except for Corferon. He still seems like a lunatic.
The thing is it's only right at the end, right? So for a lot of the word bearers up to this point, it's been a tale of combat, right? They've got their jump packs, their squads are all working together, they're getting dicked over by these AI machines. It's all like, it is bolter porn, it's Marines. You could be good or bad, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Then we get to this point, and then the pantomime villains pop back in.
Yeah.
You've got Erebus, who's there being Erebus, doing his thing, and then you've got Corferon, who, is exactly that. He is a pantomime villain.
Yeah, I can just imagine him hunched over with a big cloak over his head, and he's weaving around behind people, laughing at them.
Yeah, that's it. And all the kids are going, "Boo! He's behind you!" That is exactly him.
That's him.
This is where we're up to.
Yeah. But otherwise, I think everyone else is doing all right. I just think they literally. I mean, he obviously is, and he is a raving lunatic, isn't he? Who just wants to kill stuff.
Well, he is the Dark Apostle. So that's him. He's a nut job.
Yeah, I suppose. So he quickly backed away under the glare of Lorgar. Lorgar took Sor Talgron aside and said, sometimes sacrifices must be made. He turned and locked eyes with the priest, who was full of dread. He caught a slight nod from Lorgar in his peripheral vision, and then Erebus produced a serpent-like knife and slashed the priest's throat. Hot blood spattered the chaplain. He stuck his finger into the flowing blood and quickly drew an 8-pointed star on the priest's forehead. The symbol meant nothing to Sor Talgron. Erebus then tossed the dying man down the stairs, and his body bounced for a time before crumpling in a broken pile. Before any of the citizens could react, the first company opened fire. They gently pivoted side to side as bolter and autocannon mowed down unarmed men and women and children. Others were covered in liquid flame and melted in their dozens. The screams of the people were drowned out entirely by gunfire. Almost as one, the ammunition expended, and there was an echo of clicks and bangs, and each Terminator ejected empty magazines and reloaded a fresh one. Then they opened fire again without missing a beat. Once they were expended again, the Terminators made their way through the remains, executing anyone who had somehow survived the slaughter. Lorgar turned to a horrified Sor Talgron. Do you trust me? He asked. Sor Talgron couldn't find a voice to answer. Do you trust me? He asked more fiercely. Sor Talgron turned to face his Primarch and gave a weak nod. Then trust me when I say that this is necessary. He turned and explained loudly. The wisdom of the Emperor has driven us to this point. This is his will, This is his mercy. The blood of innocence is on his hands. He turned back to his captain. I need to know who I can trust. Staring right into the soul of Sor Talron, the captain knew fear, real fear for the first time, a feeling that no Astarte should know. Can I trust you? Lorgar said. Yes, Sor Talron managed weakly. Would you walk into hell itself alongside me if I asked? Sor Talron looked at his Primarch and nodded, and in that moment, Lorgar was staring so intently that he believed that he was going to kill him. Please, my lord, I would follow you, I swear it. Lorgar's move lightened immediately, and Sor Talron relaxed. You asked me what I'm working on. For now, I'm calling it the Book of Lorgar. I know there's such hubris, but I would like you to read it. And he put his arm back around him and said, tell me, what do you remember of the old beliefs of Colchis, Sor Talron? And there the book ends.
Well, there we go indeed. So, you know, at the start, I mean, they're right? They are worshipping a god that they believe is a false god, or the chapter now believes is a false god.
Yeah.
It turns out that's the Emperor. And like, as I said, Lorgar's like, no, this is his fault. We were more than happy to worship him. That's what we were going to do. He doesn't want that worship. So, you know, this is on him. This is what he chose.
Yeah.
Which is not strictly untrue. As I said, he's been pushed there by his pals Corferon and Erebus, both also old hands from Colchis, both Corferon especially, practices of the old gods before Lorgar and team turned up. And so that, you know, it turns out that those old gods on Colchis, whether or not Corferon and Erebus knew it, happened to be chaos gods. Thus the 8-pointed star, and away we go. And of course, like you can see there, that the love for Lorgar, for their Primarch, who, you know, by all accounts sounds he's a bit of a wanker, like is dragging them all down the path of heresy. And what I mean by that with him is he's like, he writes books, he's all a bit airy-fairy, like he turns up, he's covered in gold plate, like he's got like a gold leaf across his bald head with his scripture, his words of Lorgar, and he's like, you know, he's writing his book, he's calling it the Book of Lorgar. It's like, you know, come on. Like, he's a little bit into himself, I think.
Yeah.
But it's but because of that, because of, as I said, all of this sort of stuff, all of his legion are going to follow him down this path now.
Yeah.
I don't know if there were any loyalist word bearers, or whether it might be one to look up. But
there must be a few, unless they're all really like,
oh no, they're so in love
very
with
faithful,
so in love with Lorgar that they're like, nope, this is it. If he's going that way, we're going that way with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because obviously, like, you can sort of, I feel like Sor Talron's a really good jumping in point, because you've got the ones we've already met, they were already evil. Like in Battle for the Abyss, they're already evil. Corferon, Erebus, we know that they're the masterminds really behind everything that's going on. So you've got this guy who loves Lorgar, but also is devout and loves the God Emperor. Gets to this planet, is carrying out the Holy War. Didn't really want to, because he's like, well, they've got potential.
Yeah.
And then makes the discovery of, oh shit, these people are actually worshipping the God Emperor already.
They were already doing that, yeah.
And if Lorgar himself hadn't turned up, and it may have been Corferon who came and said, no, let's kill them all, maybe he would have stood his ground and defended them.
Maybe.
Because Dad's turned up, he's back down straight away, because he generally, like, he felt fear that he shouldn't, no Astarte should feel. So he's obviously sort of, I don't know, back down through fear and gone, oh, all right, then I'll hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
But I don't think if another captain had turned up, maybe it would have been different. So maybe Sor Talron may have maybe loyalist string to him.
Maybe, or more questioning. Like, like as I said, he's I think most Astartes are probably on a fairly even morality balance, if that makes sense. They all seem, to be fair, but they will fall in line depending on who it is that's telling them to do something.
Well, that's it, I suppose, because looking back, everyone who gets killed on Istavan, they're getting killed because of who their commander is.
Yeah.
Not because of who they are.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, you got assigned to the first company, unfortunately. He likes the Emperor, so you're fucked, mate.
Yeah, they're all Terran born, and we definitely can't trust you.
Well,
So
like Lucius, he had to literally
get on the inside
to save his own skin.
Yeah.
And they said the only reason you're getting killed is because you're one of Sal Terrence's mates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the other thing is, obviously, we know Corferon went down to this planet.
Yeah, he's already been there, and he
must have known.
Oh no, he absolutely knew.
Yeah,
that's he may have even given them the book. Like he definitely knows. Like that's it. Like it is. This is. He doesn't care. Like he definitely knew that. That's it. And he came back and was like, no, look, this world is effectively compliant. They are keen to join the Emperor, but we're no longer with the Emperor. We're the old gods of Colchis. We better go down there and sort them out.
Unlucky for them, they didn't turn up 6 months earlier.
Oh yeah, because they would have just been like that. Would have maybe if they had done, the Emperor wouldn't have turned up at Monarchia, because it would have been like a in and out job. Yeah, they're super compliant.
Yeah.
But there you go.
It's all down to timing.
It's always the case. Always the case.
Oh man. And then I wonder that obviously we'll probably find out not too long from now, or like you say, 2028. What hopefully we do see Saw Talgon again and find out exactly like his development and how he's either indoctrinated into Lorgar's new way or.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think he does. Like, I think like a lot of them. That's what I mean. And I don't know if there are any loyalist word bearers.
Yeah.
But they're the two things that I'm going to look up after this. What did Saw Talgon get up to? And were there any loyalist word bearers? Because there will be a few that haven't known this is happening. So now there will be loyalist word bearers, like in the timeline of where we're looking at this story. But it's like, do they all just, drink the Kool-Aid as soon as Lorgar says, yeah, actually now we're into, chaos undivided.
Yeah.
That's what we're into now. So chill out. And they've all just gone, okay, cool. Like, I don't know, like things to investigate. We do find out a lot more in the first Heretic, but we'll come on to that when we get to that book, which is not far away now, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. Cool, but no, I really like that one. It was a nice surprise because I wasn't expecting to.
Yeah.
But yeah, as soon as you go to that planet, and they're cool. Like they said, I didn't say it, but then Land Raiders are freshly given to them from the Mechanicum as well.
Yeah, all new.
So I don't know if they're covered in spikes that he just didn't see because they were going too fast.
It depends whether he gets them from the Dark Mechanicum or.
No, that's it. Yeah, they haven't been upgraded yet.
They haven't given it all over yet. But yeah, could be.
Yeah. That was good. And like I said, he was a badass character, diving about with that jump pack on. I reckon that'd be a good scene to see him just step up off of that ledge and go.
Just drop off, like you can see him just dropping off and then letting it kick in. Yeah. I did like, that is one of the bits that was really worth reading it for as well, was the descriptions of like, you can see like this culture that they've invaded. They're obviously technologically advanced. They've probably got STCs knocking around. That's why they've got their AI. They've got these Tesla things that the STC has probably gone, right, we can create this because we've got this raw material, and they've gone and created it all. In comparison to quite often they talk about like the the dirty and black smoke out the back of the jump packs.
Yeah.
And you just see like they're like, you know, like really, you know, they're rolling coal as these archaic petrol fumed, soot, dusty, like horrible things are used for them to bounce around. It's just quite a nice visual between the two.
Yeah. There's rock up and pollute everything.
Yeah. We've wiped out 98% of the world. It's brutal. The 2% that's left, you know, we're gonna do that, and then what we're gonna do is tell you that yes, you have my word, and then you get Erebus and his wavy snake knife just and that's it.
Yeah, I did feel for him. I did feel for him when that happened, and the Primarch says, I was like, oh, brilliant! I'm going to get top marks for this. And
yeah, I've done a good job here. Yeah,
just watching that old guy gets his throat cut, and you think, oh, that's one of them heartbreaking moments for him.
Yeah, that's it. It is like the Mitchell and Webb sketch where they're the two Nazis, and they like turn to each other and they go like, "Are we the bad guys?"
Yeah.
That's very much what this felt like a little bit for old Saw Talgron.
Yeah, bad times.
Yeah,
but you can't choose family, can you?
Definitely not. No.
Oh well, I look forward to the next one now. It's Silent Sisters next.
Oh, is that? I do know. It's been so long since I read this one. I've forgotten. I know. Yeah, they're all good, as I said, but there's a couple in here that are particularly stick in the memory. So, but it will be good anyway, nonetheless.
Cool. Do you want to?
Absolutely. So, thank you for listening along. Hope you enjoyed it today. Obviously, if you liked it, go back and listen to the other ones in this that we covered from Tale of Heresy, but also go back and listen to the early ones if you've not listened to them yet either, because we've gone through them all up to this point. You can find us on Instagram on Iron and Ceramite, and if you use that as a hashtag, you'll get a chance for your post to be promoted in our Insta stories. We're also on Facebook, and you can search the group there for Iron and Ceramite. Likewise on Twitter, if that's your platform, it will repost whenever we push stuff live on the other platforms. Obviously YouTube, as you can see, it's here. But you know, if you liked the video, give it a like, give us a subscribe, share it with someone that's into 40k as well. It's always good for us to get that spread round. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a load of other podcast services as well. All good, I'm sure. And again, search Iron and Ceramite and you'll be able to find us there. Twitch, not much going on at the moment, but you know, we have fits and starts, so you can find us there. Again, that's Iron and Ceramite. And then the Patreon and Element Games. If you want to chuck us some money, it'll all go back into the channel, keeps us going, helps us improve certain things. Likewise for Element Games. If you use the link in the description or add that code to the end of your link whenever you're buying your hobby stuff, we get a kickback that goes back into the channel. We recently bought ourselves the Tempest of War deck of cards, as well as did a giveaway for everyone that follows us, so it gives back to you as well. And if you're buying your hobby stuff, Element Games is a great place to get it, because it's very competitively priced, and they always chuck in a sticker and a sweet, which is always, I don't know if you've ordered in a while, but it's always worth that for that alone. And then finally, you've got combat cards as well. If you've not played it, it's an old school version of the card game that used to exist back in the day. Myself and Glenn from the channel are pretty avid players, so come and have a go. The other chaps play as well, but maybe not quite as frequently as myself and Glenn. But see whether you can join us at the top of the table. But otherwise, thank you for watching. As I said, follow us, search for us anywhere on Iron and Ceramite, and you're more than likely going to find us or one of us from the channel anyway. And get involved. Tell us what you thought.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
As always, we would like to thank you for listening to our Iron and Ceramite podcast. If you liked us, then you can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and any other good podcast services. Just remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.